Brian Waller, Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman. As a preliminary matter, we'll start by confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me, and we can hear them. Members, when I call your name, can you please respond in the affirmative? Mr. Rosers?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yes.
Mr. McCusker?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Ms. Koshavos?
Yes.
Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Let's see. Mr. Belfiore, can you, I guess we can do that as we get to the other one, sorry. So good evening, it is 7:11 p.m. This open meeting of the Grafton Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with the legislative acts of 2021, Chapter 20, Section 20, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is convening by a Zoom video conference as posted on the meeting agenda, which can be found on the Town of Grafton website. Please see the meeting agenda for details on how to participate remotely. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All participation within this meeting will be visible to others. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording of this meeting, and that the recording may be published or rebroadcast at a later date. This meeting will feature public comment. To request acknowledgement to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The meeting administrator will enable you to speak when it is your turn. For those on the phone exclusively, the AV staff will coordinate with the meeting administrator to allow you to speak. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be done by a roll call vote. The first order of business is the continuation of 15 North Main Street. We can either give Matali a minute or move on to Creeper Hill. Anyone opposed to moving on to Creeper Hill or case?
I think that makes sense.
All right.
You say to 80?
880, yep. All right, so the way we will proceed this evening is that the clerk will read the petition, and then the petitioner will have the opportunity to present their case. The petitioner will have 15 minutes to present. The petitioner shall present the required information, and all comments should be specific. The opposition will also have 15 minutes to speak. These time limits will be extended only with consent of the board. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to the petition will then have an opportunity to do that. Letters received in favor of or in opposition to the petition will be read into the meeting record. If you wish to speak, state your name and address for the record. The board may ask questions from time to time. However, all conversations should be directed through the chair. After all the evidence is presented, the board will enter into discussion and render a decision. At any time during this hearing and prior to a decision being made by the board, the petitioner has the option to request that the petition be withdrawn without prejudice or continued until a later date, at which time the petitioner would provide additional information favorable to the petitioner. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Reed to read the variance request for case number 880.
I'm having a little bit of issues hearing Brian, so I don't know if it's my microphone. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does anyone else have
Brian is a
issues
little
hearing me?
broken up.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Brian as well.
Well, when they first start
there's
speaking, it's okay, but then a sentence in and it's all blurry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an echo coming from Brian's, and I'm getting an echo from you, Kay.
You're getting an echo from me?
No, you're fine.
No, that's Claire. No.
It was from Brian.
Okay.
So keep going. I'm going to switch my audio while.
Okay. The legal notice, the Grafton Board of Appeals has received a petition from Scott Morrison for 45 Creeper Hill Road, North Grafton, requesting that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant a variance to allow relief from section 3.3.3.4 of the Grafton zoning bylaw requirement that a driveway be located 10 feet from the property line. The board will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, January 6, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom conference to consider this request and or take whatever action is necessary, including the granting of a finding, special permit, variance, or other necessary relief allowed under the zoning bylaw. The January 6th meeting may be accessed via either the following means: Grafton government cable access via Zoom conferencing or dial by your location. Zoning Board of Appeals, Brian Waller, Chairman, Marianne DeRosiers, Vice Chairman, Kay Reed, Clerk, William Yeomans, William McCusker, Peter Adams, alternate, and Matali Biswas, alternate. Case number 880, 2021, posted in the Grafton News Thursday, December 23rd and Thursday, December 30th, 2021.
Is that better? Audio. At this time, I entertain a motion to open the public hearing on case number 880.
So move.
Yeah, I don't think we don't need to do a motion for that, Brian. At least we never have, but for some reason we need to do it when we close it.
Oh, all right. Oh, actually, never mind. Let's see. So at this time, I'd invite the petitioner to present.
Good evening. Just for the record, Scott Morrison, petitioner here. I had long conversations with my attorney this afternoon, and he is of the opinion that I may not actually need a variance for this particular project. So he suggested that I request a continuation to the next meeting, which will allow time for the two of us to meet with the building inspector to resolve the issues. So if I do in fact need a variance, I will come back at the next meeting. If not, I will simply just withdraw this application. I apologize that it's late. Last minute, I would have liked to sent the request in, prior to this meeting, but there's been some COVID issues on his end. So it's, unfortunately, I just found that out hours ago.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Yeomans.
I just have a question. Is it appropriate for me to ask a question? The hearing has been open. It's a general type of question.
Sure. I don't think there's anything that prejudiced the petitioner.
And the question is more directed to Mr. Berger. The question I have is this proposal for Creeper Hill Road. That's the one we're listening to right now, correct?
Correct.
That is OLI zone. The question I have, and maybe Mr. McCusker can answer that, is I was under the impression that we cannot do a single family house in an OLI zone. And I know this has much history. It goes back to the 80s.
I don't believe it's OL zoned. I think it's residential zone. I think the next lot over is the commercial zoning.
Well, I just pulled that off of the sheet. The town, it refers to OLI, office light industry. I don't know. I'd have to look, at the zoning map.
It sure does, Bill. The print is pretty clear, zone OLI.
What's
You
that
know,
on the
the-
site plan?
It's on,
Yeah.
yeah, it's on the big sheet that I received. It's,
I know for a fact, I reviewed the zoning map before I signed a purchase and sales agreement. It's not in a commercial zone.
well, it's not commercial, it's office and light industry.
Yeah, I think it's an RR 40 zone or something. It's not zoned. That's not correct.
Well, someone may want to update the print if you actually come back before us.
Yeah, I'll check with the engineer and make sure that he corrects that.
Now, my question may have something to do, things may have changed. I mean, this goes back to the original intent when it was, I think, first subdivided in 85 or 87 from your notes in the package that I received. So I would just like Mr. Berger to clarify that along with you if he could at a later date. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing on case 880.
No.
Yep.
Brian, we're not going to close it because he's asking
Oh.
to continue it, right? So
Sorry.
we may still have to hear something in a week.
So then we need a motion to continue it, correct?
Yep. We need to decide. We need to decide when our next meeting is.
On a date.
So, Katrina, do we have any cases pending?
No.
Then through you, Mr. Chair, maybe ask the applicant how much time he needs, if there's any minimum time that he needs. Otherwise, maybe we just shoot for 4 weeks from now in February or something like that.
I think,
Mr. Morrison.
yeah, the amount of time I need is I've got to set up a Zoom call with Mr. Berger. I don't know what his availability is, potentially early next week. And I think we could resolve it hopefully at that meeting or shortly thereafter.
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest we shoot for, sometime in February, be it, maybe the 10th or something like that.
Let's see, would the 10th works for me. Does anyone have any issues with the 10th?
I'm open.
I'm good.
That's fine for me too.
Yeah, I'm open as well.
Okay. So let's see, entertain a motion to continue case 880 to the next meeting to be held on February 10th.
Mr. Chairman,
So moved.
I move that we continue case number 880 to February 10th at 7 p.m.
Second.
All right. We'll do this by roll call vote. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Motion passed. So we will see you on February 10th, if needed.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, so at this time, the next order of business is a continuation of case 878. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. McCusker. I recused myself from this matter. So I'm going to stay on, but just mute and hide my video.
Yep. Okay. So next order, back to materials. All right, so the next order of business is going to be a continuation of case number 878, 15 North Main Street, a special permit for change of use. And bear with me for a moment. I went packet. I have the information in front of me. All right. So normally when a continuation like this, we would typically turn it over to the applicant and say what's new since we last met and that sort of thing. But I'm actually going to jump in here and say a few things before we turn it over to Steve. First of all, since our last meeting, I do believe Mr. Belfiore met with the development team and Mr. Berger. I've also had numerous conversations with Mr. Berger and Mr. Belfiore about, how to try to, basically what we're trying to do is find a way to allow Mr. Belfiore to have essentially an ice cream truck parked in the parking lot at 50 North Main Street. And it's a challenge because our bylaw doesn't really address that. And so there's actually a little bit of brainstorming going on, communications with town council, things like that. What we came up with, what Mr. Berger and I believe town council came up with was essentially, that if the zoning board of appeals, agrees that this is not a more detrimental use and things like that that are typically referred to as a Section 6 finding, typical of a special permit, then we should go ahead and offer a special permit to allow for the mobile ice cream truck to be parked and used in the parking lot of 15 North Main Street. We're not necessarily changing the use of the building itself. That avoids Mr. Belfiore needing to sprinkler the building and things like that that would come along with commercial use. It just allows him to use the ice cream truck in that parking lot in a legal manner. Simultaneous to this, Mr. Berger is also working on a regulation that would essentially put the licensing and things like that of these mobile food vendors, and there's a lot of them around town, under the jurisdiction of the select board. They would be required to go to the select board for, I believe, an annual permit or something along those lines. The select board would be the ones that would say yay or nay that, on these mobile vendors. But just in case that doesn't get through the select board in time for Mr. Belfiore's selling season, the feeling was let's proceed with the special permit for selling ice cream in the parking lot as we've discussed. So, as I said, there's been quite a few different discussions back and forth between myself and Mr. Belfiore and Mr. Berger, kind of three-way conversations back and forth, town council, et cetera. That, I think, brings you up to speed. I want to make sure everyone's aware of conversations that I had. I think that brings everyone up to speed on conversations I had. I'd ask Mr. Berger if he has anything to add to what I've just said, corrections or additions or whatever. I think I got it right, but.
No, you have it. It's exactly the way I would have put it.
Okay. And I do think that Mr. Belfiore did give us a new letter kind of modifying his original ask. It's essentially the same ask, just kind of clarifying his original ask. So that letter came in yesterday or the day before. I think we've all seen it, but essentially it says, I'm seeking a special permit to allow a mobile food truck, parentheses, moving cow, to operate and sell food, non-alcoholic drinks, and ice cream in the parking lot of 50 North Main Street, Grafton, Mass. So I think that's kind of where we're at. And yep, Katrina just put it up there. So at this point, I guess I would turn it over to Mr. Belfiore and see if he has anything he wants to add, or.
Nope, thanks. And you guys can hear me because I've got to wear a mask because I'm at the restaurant?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I changed, basically, instead of asking for the use of the building, you already basically explained it, but I just want to also state that it's not going to be there all the time either. It's not like we're setting up a whole business in this parking lot. It's there when we're not doing events, and we've got a lot booked for the summer already. So when we're not doing an event, we just like to be able to open it up on that property. It's got a nice area now with the park, the Stephen Rooney Park that's there. There's benches, there's streams. So it's a nice setting just to have some ice cream and stuff like that. So we're not looking for like a permanent structure. This thing is a full truck. It does drive. So it will be moving around. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that.
Bill, I'd like to
Okay,
add to
any
that.
questions?
Okay,
Mr.
can I add to
Berger?
that, Bill? All
Yes,
right,
go ahead, Mr. Berger.
all right. So the only thing, the stipulation on this whole thing is it cannot be a permanent structure. That's the whole stipulation. This is mobile wheels. Once you put something on a foundation and we call it a permanent structure, then we just ruined everything that we tried to accomplish. I just want that to be clear, that's all.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of questions reflecting back on the first meeting. I don't have a problem with the ice cream truck. One of the concerns I have is when is it going to be open and where are people going to park? It is an area adjacent to the Steve Roney Memorial Park, and I can see people parking over in the parking lot of the restaurant and then walking over to the ice cream place. The location of where the trail is going to be, there's not a lot of parking in the immediate area. When we last spoke at the last meeting, I was under the impression that Steve was going to bring back a more definitive type of plan relative to parking. We also talked about handicap parking spaces, and the minutes make note of the fact that he had talked about putting 2 handicap parking spaces in there. I guess, my concern is we know that ice cream stands are popular, and I just don't want to see that we create a problem. Ice cream stands are, obviously there's an abundance of families with kids, and I know that he doesn't open until 4 p.m. Is it the intent to only have the ice cream truck or trailer available in hours that the restaurant is not open?
Well, the thing is, they're 2 separate businesses. So most of the time that the cow will be over there, the grill will be closed. So yes. However, I can't say that on a Wednesday night, if we're not at an event or some sort of a party, that we wouldn't go over there and open. I do have other parking that I rent from the mills across the street. So I've got plenty of parking between the restaurant and the mills across the street, as well as in that lot over there. I don't think this is going to generate that much traffic. I mean, we opened a little bit last year already, and there are handicap spots already at the Rooney Park. So I don't know. That's all public parking. There's 3 spots plus a handicap spot that's outside my property. So I don't know if, if someone's going to the park and they want to park there, that's public parking. But they can walk over to our area and get an ice cream if they want. But it's not a business that's going to be a structure. It's a moving business. So I think a food truck doesn't have to have any of those. As far as all the food trucks I've seen, they just kind of take up the space.
So, Mr. Yeomans, it's certainly is a legitimate concern, right? We don't want to create a problem. We do have a little bit of benefit of, having essentially witnessed a year of that trailer being parked back there. I know I was back there a number of times, and I never had a problem finding a place to park. And that's even, a Friday evening when the restaurant was quite frankly hopping, and I know people were parked in that area to go to the restaurant. One of the problems I can envision here is our bylaw will talk about a restaurant and X number of seats requiring X number of parking spots, or if it's an office, it requires so many square feet, so many parking spots. We don't have that for a mobile food truck. So, in my opinion, we just kind of, I think that I don't know what we can do other than kind of, and I think we know that there's a number of spots back there to park. At least I witnessed quite a few places to park back there, and we do know that there is additional parking. Either in the Grafton Grill parking lot or across the street at Washington Mills, all parking controlled by Grafton Grill by Mr. Belfiore. So, my gut sense is parking will be okay. I think it's worth talking about it, but my gut sense is parking will be okay, and it'll be somewhat self-limiting, quite frankly. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear what you're saying, and the concern I have is that this is an ice cream stand that's going to promote families bringing whenever it's going to be there. I don't, and I say this respectfully because I think Steve has done a good job in adding other locations for parking for his employees. I do not see the site across the street by Washington Mills or the other areas in behind those houses that he takes advantage of. I do not see a family parking there and bringing kids across that street to go to the ice cream stand. I think that's, that's a very hazardous take. So I just want to be on the record that I'm concerned about the parking. And I think that, my thinking is if he's restricted to the hours when the restaurant is closed, but, that may not be the feeling of other members of the board. But I don't really count the other off-site places. Those are places for his employees, not for someone that's going to go in with a few kids and park and try to get across the street at that light to get over to the Roney Park area to go in and get an ice cream. That's
Other
it.
comments from the board? All right, well, hearing none, then I think at this point, if there's nothing else to contribute from the board, Katrina, do we have any input from the public, any letters or for or against? And
We've
I don't know
received
if it's gonna
nothing.
be- Okay, and can we tell there's anyone that's got a hand up or anything like that that wants to say anything here?
There's a phone-in person in the meeting, but I don't know what they're calling for. If you look under attendees, there's one attendee. And I don't know if they're calling in on this one or if they're calling in on something else.
Okay.
I guess we could click on them and ask.
I don't think we can. I thought that they were supposed to say something, and Bill would.
Oh, I have to allow them to talk.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
there we go. Caller, are you calling in for this hearing?
All right, let's assume not.
You're muted, Katrina. Oh, here you go.
Yes, I did call in for this, but no comment.
Can you at least give me your name, sir?
So it's Jack Riley,
And your address?
162 Worcester Street.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to close case number, what was this, 868,
878.
878?
So moved.
Second,
Someone second it?
I seconded.
Okay, but actually you can't, Mary Ann, because you weren't here for the first night.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
forgot.
I'll second it. I'll
Thank you.
second.
So motion made and seconded to end case number 868. Discussion, hearing none, by a roll call vote. Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes,
Mr. Adams.
Am I a voting member?
Yeah, yes, you and Ms. Biswa were both appointed as voting members when this was first opened the
Okay.
previous evening.
Yes.
Ms. Biswa?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes, so the hearing is closed to public input. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to grant a special permit to, who are we granting it to? Steve, is it you or is it 1012 Bridge Street LLC? Is that who owns that property?
Yeah,
Who
it's
are
under,
we granting the permit to?
Yeah. it's on, the property is owned by 1012 Bridge Street LLC.
So I entertain a motion to grant a special permit to 1012 Bridge Street LLC for 15 North Main Street to allow, Grafton, Mass, to allow a mobile food truck to sell non-alcoholic drinks and ice cream in the parking lot of 15 North Main Street.
So moved.
Someone say
Second. Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll up again by a roll call vote. Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes,
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Biswas.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. So Steve, you've got your special permit, same drill, the secretary will type it up. We need to sign it, gets filed with the clerk, 20-day appeal period, and then you really should go get that filed at the, I think that's it.
I will do all of that and I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you. Happy New Year.
You as well.
All right, Brian, come back. Thank you.
All right. So the next item is Fisherville Terrace. But actually, can we do this in the other order and do Providence Road Commons first?
The chairman.
I think that will be quicker. So Mr. McEwen?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so at the last meeting that we addressed the Providence Road Commons closeout with the board, the board requested that we route the final decision through full-time staff. It ended up being the planning department and the town planner, Christopher McGoldrick. And he has issued an email. He has not issued a formal letter, but issued an email, which was sent to Katrina, basically stating that everything has been taken care of in accordance with their standard process. So again, this is gray area for all of us. We feel that we've taken care of everything that the board has requested, and we're looking to get some type of final sign off, I guess, from the board or vote, so that the final monies can be released, and basically the applicant will be free of any ties to, the board.
So the final building permit was issued, correct?
Yes, I believe Bob's on it.
And
Final
Bill,
permit was,
the-
the final permit was issued. The last unit has been sitting there completed. They were not able to sell that unit until we did all of this.
That's
We
right.
couldn't issue the final CO till we got the as-built and made sure everything else was met.
Okay,
Which at our last meeting, you guys approved them, approved that the building department could go through the final building inspection and close out the permit and issue the final CO, which was done about a month or so ago.
okay. Bill McCusker, can you mute? Because I think the echo is coming from you. You keep lighting up like you're speaking every time someone else speaks. So I reviewed everything that was submitted. I agree. I don't think there's anything left to be done. I'm still not sure what we're supposed to do though, because we can, I mean, I think we can vote to close out the permit, but does that do anything? And that's where I think we were struggling. I don't know if Mr. McCusker or Mr. Yeomans with more history here, but I don't think I think we would all be in agreement, and if anyone that's reviewed that, all the materials, that all the boxes have been checked. Mr. Yeomans?
Yeah, the question I have is, what does Mr. McEwen need to release the funds? As I understand it, isn't this a cash bond versus an insurance bond? Are we tying up the cash?
I believe so.
Yeah, so, is a letter stating that the governing body granted this permit, the Zoning Board of Appeals, as a 40B project, has, whatever that form has to take, that letter could be sent on the behalf of the board by the chair to them, which basically says that all of the terms and conditions of the 40B permit were completed to the satisfaction of the town departments, and therefore there's no further need to have monies or a bond tied up for this project.
Well, there's a certificate of compliance, if you look at the packet of information I gave all of you, that Brian had submitted to the planning board. That is what the planning board uses to close out the development. So I guess we could change it, instead of saying planning board, put zoning board, and then we just issue it through us. And it just has to be signed by the engineer, by the developer, and a notary. And I think that would close it out. And then, because it's all still got to get submitted to the state too, for the count and for the reimbursement for the 40B, if they get any money back, or, the accounting that now needs to go through. I think that's the only document. The only other one we've ever closed out was Fisherville Terrace, and I haven't found everything what we used to close that one out. I'm still looking for it. I don't remember what we did on that one.
Hope we didn't close it out yet.
I mean, not Fisherville, Flint Pond, sorry. I
Did
get
anybody,
confused.
We closed out Pulte on Milford Road also.
Yeah, that was before me. I don't know how that one was closed out. I could try and dig through and figure it out. But the only thing I see is, like I said, there's this one document from planning. It's called a certificate.
Completion.
A certificate of compliance.
I
And
think that's a good suggestion, Katrina, personally.
I say, I can just retype it with it saying zoning board on it, and then they have to sign it. It gets notarized and it gets submitted, and that will close it out, I think. I can double check with Chris. I can call him or email him tomorrow because the building's closed. He's not coming in, but I can try and get a hold of him and find out. But I think that would work.
Okay, so do we need any kind of vote from the board, or is this just something logistically that we can work through offline outside of a meeting?
Well, it sure seems like we should, as a board, say this is done. And then, I think at that point, then it would be something that you or a designee could work offline to kind of, sign something or whatever may be necessary. But I do think the board should, entertain a motion and vote that this thing is done, whatever that is or whatever done means, but somehow we say it's done.
Through the chair. Yeah, I think that's a wise decision too, is to have the board vote as a body that the project was, as Mr. Yeoman stated, was completed in conformance with the conditions of the original permit, and then all of the site work and required plans have been completed in substantial conformance with the original design plans.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Yeomans?
Yeah, and I think it should specifically say that the Katrina's suggestion that the zoning board of appeals in the governing body for a 40B project, that all the terms and conditions of that 40B comprehensive permit have been met and to the satisfaction of the various town departments, and that the board vote on that as a motion.
So can you guys see the screen I'm sharing, or is it my desktop you can see? Can you
No,
see
we
the
can see it.
doc? You can see it? Okay.
Yep.
So if you look at the certificate of compliance, it says planning department up here. I can change that to zoning, but right here,
Yep.
it says to the planning board, we could change that to the zoning, because right here it says, we certify to the best of our knowledge, information, and belief that the site work has been done in substantial conformance with the approved. Instead of saying the definitive site plan, put it as the comprehensive.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
makes sense.
I
It
can
looks-
create that document, and that's maybe something we start using to close out these other 40Bs we're gonna have coming for us. But I can do that if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, and my question is that I think it should be something that the chair of the ZBA, giving the chair power to sign that on behalf of the full board. We would normally all come in and we sign the Mylars, we sign the sheets, but I don't see any need for us all to be coming in to sign this approval.
Well, this doesn't even, I mean, and I'd have to check with Chris, because it doesn't look like this form gets signed by the planning board. It's just a certificate of compliance issued that the planning board reviewed everything, and they're saying that it met what it was supposed to be. Because on this form, there's not even a signature spot for either the town planner or any of the planning board. It's for the engineer and for the developer.
Then I think that
We could
Excuse
add
me.
a spot, we could add, probably add a spot for the ZBA chairman and get that done.
I think it should note that the board effectively on January 6th voted to accept the fact that everything is done, and to have the chairman on behalf of the board to sign that, because Jeff has to do the engineer's seal on that. But I think that form would work.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Mr. Adams.
Katrina, can I have the screen for a minute?
Sure thing. Okay.
Where am I? I'll put my hand down.
Oh, sorry. Sure.
Let's go here. Can you see this certificate here?
Oh, I did make one.
So I like keeping things the same. I don't like swapping. I think this is all you need to do is modify, well, not modify, utilize this.
That was the,
Yep.
okay.
That's-
Perfect.
I think that's what you
That's-
need. That's what you, I don't know about all
Yep.
this because I'm not reading it. I'm just
Well-
looking at,
This was to release the funds on the tri-party agreement, but I can tweak this to have it say that instead of, that all the work is completed and we can, any funds withstanding can be released. I can create that. That's, yeah. I forgot about that one. I couldn't find it, but that's not a problem.
this gives you everything you want in here, the releasing of the money. I think this is the end of the project for Flint Pond.
That
Yep.
was,
So
Okay.
I think this is what you're talking about. This is what you need.
okay.
I'm gonna mute.
Through the chair. Yeah, I agree with Bob on this. The other document that she brought up was strictly a document between us as the engineer, submitting a package to the planning board, certifying that we did the as-built and it complied. Didn't say anything about complying with the conditions of approval under in the planning board case, a definitive approval, in this case, obviously a 40B. So yeah, I think that this is definitely, and looking at the front of this, looks more in line. I'd be happy to, after Katrina gets something drafted up, to look through it with our client and make sure that we feel that it's, in line. But I think the fact that you got the vote, you got some dates, and then probably cut out the stuff in the back relative to the entire, looks like it's basically the entire agreement that was done for that particular project.
Mr. Chairman,
McCusker?
I gotta.
yeah, through you to Mr. McEwen. It came up at the last meeting as far as the there was a bank account or something like that for surety. Do you know what you need to get that released?
I don't know what he needs to get that released. Basically, he directed us to get a sign off from the ZBA, and you directed me to go to a full-time planning staff to get the documentation signed off by a full-time planning staff. And that's what we have done.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you said that earlier. I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand. So then through the chair again to Mr. Berger, can you display that again, but just stop moving it around so much at the top? I really want to read what language is there at the top of that thing.
through the chair, what I would note is a lot of what Mr. Yeoman said relative to, quote unquote, checking off all the boxes relative to the original comprehensive permit, along with the approved design plans for the special permit. It kind of like two separate entities as they got recorded. So I think that would definitely you'd want to have all that in there. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Well,
I think to have the funds released, I mean, this language or some variation of this seems to like it would meet that need.
Bob, could you just push that up a little bit higher? Get rid of the, yeah, all right, stop. So, Mr. Chairman, what I was thinking was to do a motion that basically says I'm going to skip that first line. It says, well, all right. Do a motion that says the zoning board of appeals certifies that to the best of our knowledge, information, and belief that all work has been completed for the Providence Road Commons 40B development per the submitted plans in accordance with the comprehensive permit issued for the above referenced development in the town of Grafton zoning bylaws. We, the zoning board of appeals, approve the release of any surety funds that have been held in surety during construction of the above referenced development. Motion made by and seconded by on a vote. So I think I would do this motion pretty much right what we see on the screen right now. Just change Flint Pond to Providence Road Commons, and then approve the release of, we don't know what the amount is, so
Just the
we
remaining
approve the
funds.
release of any surety that's being held. I don't know what it is, but, and so that's what I'm thinking.
That sounds really reasonable,
Who just said that, by the way?
Brian.
Okay, all right, well, that's because
Which
the applicant
Brian?
likes it. What about the rest of us?
Any further comment on?
I'm in agreement with that.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair?
Yeoman.
Mr.
Sorry,
Chair?
who?
Mary
Mr.
Ann?
Rogers?
Yes. I'm not sure about my voting status on this. I know I have been present for some issues on this particular matter, but I think as a governing body, the board should take a vote and basically have a decision that the development is complete to the best of our knowledge and to the in compliance with the comprehensive permit, just like Bill McCusker said. I really do think we need to take a vote on it. Like I said, I'm not sure of my voting size because I have been present on some, but it did come up in the last meeting that I was not present at. So I just figured I'd add my 2 cents as a member, and whether or not I can vote, I think it was helpful. So thanks.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, I think the 5 sitting members can vote. I mean, this
That's
is
what I
not
was just
really
going to say. Yeah, I don't see any reason
I'm
Mary Ann wouldn't vote.
Okay, thank you.
And as a 40B, we only need 3 of the 5 members to approve it.
Okay.
So I'll make, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. I basically just said that the zoning board of appeals of the town of Grafton certifies that to the best of knowledge and belief that all work has been completed for the Providence Road Commons 40B development per the submitted plans in accordance with the comprehensive permit issued for the above referenced development in the town of Grafton zoning bylaws. We, the zoning board of appeals, approve the release of any surety that has been held. No, approve the release of any funds that have been held in surety during the construction of the above referenced development. That's the end of my motion. And I assume Katrina, you can capture that.
So moved.
Second.
I made the motion. Someone needs to say second.
You made them. Then I second it. That's I forgot. How quickly you're forgotten.
All right. So we'll take a roll call vote on this. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. The motion is passed. So we'll work through the logistics of getting this signed. And using this form, we'll all have to sign. I think that's a problem.
Mr. Chair, does Bill have to give you the number or no?
I think Mr. McEwen can get us the number. It was all remaining funds.
Okay.
I don't even know if we need to put the actual number on there with that language.
Through the chair, I would say leave it as cited by Mr. McCusker. If I can get the number from the applicant, and I'll just forward it so you have it in your files, but I would leave the document be drafted exactly how Mr. McCusker said.
I would agree. We don't want to re-sign it for being off a few dollars.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good night. Happy New Year.
And the same to all of you.
All right. So Fisherville.
Paul Cusson.
All right. And
I'm here to Munir.
hi, Munir. So Bill, do you want to run with this?
If you'd like me to, I can.
I mean, the only reason I say is, I think you were going to continue with this particular one.
Well, no, actually, we were talking, that was Adams Road Trust that you and I specifically spoke to, that I would continue to lead.
Oh.
But,
Apologies.
you know, I will just say, so, you know, you opened the floor to me a little bit, but, you know, this is a notice of project change. So our role right now is to determine if this is a substantial change or not. If we determine it to be not a substantial change, then it effectively happens. And if we determine that it is a substantial change, then it needs to get advertised in a formal open public hearing, needs to be held. Advertised and notice to the abutters in a formal public hearing held to determine if we want to make this change to the permit. So that's our mission tonight.
All right, thank you. Sorry for my confusion. All right. So do we need a vote to open the discussion on this?
No.
Okay. So Mr. Cussin, do you want to, or Munir? Either?
You're muted. Mr. Cussin is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Cussin, representing Fisherville Terrace. Mr. McClusker is exactly correct in regarding our notice of project change. As he said, the role tonight of the board would be to determine if this change is substantial or insubstantial. And what we submitted a notice of project change dated December 15th, with hopefully all the board members have gotten a copy of it. And the primary concern for the notice or the change is there were some instances when the developer was working on the site as it relates to the improvements on Main Street, that the permit as presently written says no infrastructural work prior to 7 a.m. And in fact, what was happening is some of the workers were showing up in their cars just a few minutes prior to 7. And it became a problem for a number of folks. So I thought that, and you know, the developer has been continuing doing the work. And to my knowledge, you know, there have been no issues since the original issue of showing up 5 minutes early. So what we're trying to do is, we understand that in this permit, there again is 12 years old, roughly. And we understand that the reason that these hours were originally written the way they were was it was related primarily to the infrastructure work. That is, you know, we understand that this board's concern at that time was to control any loud noises, you know, to the detriment of the neighbors and so forth, and to enjoy their peace and quiet. So we don't have a problem with that. So what I thought so my project change request is to change paragraph C.8 as I have written. And what I've done is I've tried to break down the hours of operation into a couple different categories. And one is hours of operation primarily for the roadway infrastructure. And I'm really not proposing any substantial changes to what was originally written by the board as it relates to the infrastructure. And so we're still saying that, you know, there's no work prior to 7 a.m. and there's no work after 6 p.m. The same thing with Monday through Friday and Saturdays, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and no work on Sundays or federal holidays or Massachusetts state holidays. So we're not proposing any substantial changes there. And same thing with blasting. I broke that out a little differently just to make it clear, and I think that was the intent in the original language, and we're just saying, and blasting is a whole separate process that the applicant has to go through permits and so forth to conduct blasting. And there's certain notices they have to give and so forth. But what we're saying is that there should be no blasting after 4 p.m. or before 9 a.m. is what we're proposing. And also, we're talking about deliveries, that when we're talking about deliveries, there again, substantial deliveries such as lumber, gravel, that sort of thing would be during the same hours of 7 to 5. However, on the construction of the houses, we're proposing that that any construction as it relates to a lot of work that the neighbors would hear the noise, such as excavation, foundation, siding, roofing, and we're talking about the same hour, shall not occur between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. and Saturdays between 7 and 6, and no construction on state and or federal holidays. On the interior, however, we're proposing that generally speaking, the work on the inside of the homes do not generate excessive noise. So what we're saying is that that the work, including electrical, plumbing, installation, finished carpentry, that sort of thing, may occur before 6 a.m. or after 7 p.m., and we're not limiting the days of operation. So that's the gist of what we're proposing, just to make everything a lot clearer, and especially as it relates, as we start coming, hopefully, eventually to some spring weather and so forth, with typical the contractors, interior, the plumbers, electricians, and carpenters, and so forth, generally will work longer hours and as often as they can. So with that, I'd be glad to open up any questions.
Ron, you're muted if you were giving me the okay to talk.
Sorry. Go ahead.
All right, so a lot to unwrap here. I'm going to share my screen. Right now, do you guys see, what do you see on the screen right now? Do you see a picture of some trucks and construction site?
I do.
The entrance site.
Okay. So this picture was taken before 7 a.m. on one of the days that I was down there. This is what Mr. Cusson is referred to as. I think this actually was taken on October 5th. I think this was what Mr. Cusson is referring to as personal vehicles. This is definitely was taken before 7 a.m. and I think it's quite a bit more than personal vehicles. Somewhere here, a couple more pictures of it. You can see these guys are out of their trucks, are already heading towards the machinery. This is not people arriving in their personal vehicles waiting till 7 a.m. I think this was a different day. Again, that's a personal vehicle. That's a utility truck, a work truck. Again, they're out of the trucks. They're already starting to unload. That over there is a personal vehicle taken on the same morning. I took this picture. Just was kind of curious that this person parked their personal vehicle over in front of a neighbor's yard. Not sure why that was happening, but that's a personal vehicle. And that is not what has been typically happening at that site before 7 a.m. The next thing I want to share with you is a timeline of events. I want to make sure everyone's aware of what's really been happening down at this site. First of all, on September 1st, there was a pre-construction meeting with Mr. Munier and others that talked about the construction management plan. The construction management plan actually had the same language with respect to hours in it. It was discussed, and I don't think there was any ambiguity whatsoever that what the hours of construction applications were, right? On the 21st of September, I think is roughly when construction started, but maybe it started a little bit before then. There were calls of complaint received from 109 and 115 Main Street about starting work at 6:15 a.m. On that same day, our secretary emailed Mr. Connell and Mr. Ahmed. There was no response, and at that time, I understand that Katrina then called both of those folks. I believe she spoke to them, but I can't remember exactly. 22nd of September, 23rd of September, again, more calls of complaints from the neighbors. 28th September, more calls of complaints from the neighbors. On the 28th, Katrina again sent mail at that point to me and Dan Hill, our attorney, with CC to the developers team. On the 28th of September, Mr. Ahmed acknowledged 18-wheel vehicle arrives at 6:15, but just parks. So the implication is from Mr. Ahmed that this truck just pulls up along the street and sits and waits till 7 o'clock. Well, that's not what happens at all. All right. He pulls up and parks, but where he parks is up the hill, and he had to back up the hill. Right. You remember from those pictures, there's actually a hill there that he had to go up. And it's a commercial, it's an 18-wheel dump truck commercial vehicle. So it's got a backup alarm, beep, 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 as he backs up the hill. And on the 29th of September, when I went down and actually saw it, 6:20 in the morning, the truck backed up the hill, was in the process of backing up the hill when I arrived there at 6:20. And then he wasn't quite in the right spot, so he pulled down the hill again and backed up again. Now, I don't know how many times he did it before I got there, but that alarm going, and I think some should know how close that construction site and that entrance is to a house right next door, maybe 100 feet away. 6:20 in the morning, and it's beep, beep, beep. And Mr. Ahmed is no big deal. It's just parks his truck. I mean, that's an incredible disrespect for the neighbors, so 29th September, Mr. Federico and I both witnessed this. On the 30th of September, the zoning enforcement officer issues a cease and desist. There's a phone call apparently between the zoning enforcement officer and Mr. Ahmed. And Bob Berger told me that, he instructed Mr. Ahmed that there was not even to be any personal vehicles before 7 a.m. Nobody should be anywhere near that site before 7 a.m. was the message that I believe was delivered. So the next morning, Mr. Federico's down there and he has workers on site before 7 a.m. I mean, the lack of respect for the neighbors, for this board and the comprehensive permit that we spent a long time negotiating and agreeing to, the lack of respect for our bylaws, for the zoning enforcement officer. I mean, if I was a developer and I really cared about what was happening, I would have been down there myself at 6:15 in the morning. If any of my contractors or employees showed up, I would have fired them. But now, so on the 1st of October, Munir and Bob speak again. And my understanding is Bob tells Munir, it's your one mulligan. Now, in my mind, he's already had about 15 mulligans, but that's your one mulligan. That's on the 1st of October. On the 5th and again on the 8th. And they're there before 7 o'clock. A continued pattern of we don't care. That's my perception. That these guys just don't care. Then flash forward, go forward to early November, we have a big rainstorm. And what happens? We have flooding on Main Street. We have torrents of mud pouring down Main Street all the way down to St. James Church and beyond. I got pictures for that if you want to see it. I mean, these guys are responsible for controlling the erosion off this site. This is New England. We get rainstorms, and we get some pretty heavy rainstorms. That should not come as a surprise to anybody. And when I saw the pictures of the neighbor's garage and driveway and houses being flooded by water coming off this site, again, it's obviously they just don't care about the neighbors. For that to happen, it's just a complete lack neighbors. And I want to remind everyone that, because I know a lot of you weren't here, but from the beginning of this application, there's been a group of neighbors that were at every single meeting, and they expressed a lot of concern. One of the things they expressed concern about was flooding, but also just the overall project and the impact of the neighborhood. This has been a very big issue with this permit from the start, is the impact that this would have to the neighborhood. And in my opinion, for us to make any changes whatsoever to the work hours or anything along those lines, first of all, it absolutely is a substantial change. And we absolutely need to have a public hearing, and this member of the board would never vote to change those hours unless we got a bunch of neighbors coming in saying that they said that was okay. And I don't think that's likely to happen. So that's my feedback on this. I think it's an extremely bad idea. I think, in fact, we need to go the other way. I think the developer has sent a very clear message that they have no intention of following the permit or bylaws or respecting anything that the zoning enforcement officer has to say. So we really need to kind of go the other direction, and everyone needs to be extremely diligent throughout the monitoring of this project, because clearly it's going to be problematic. It's been problematic for the first 2 months, and it's going to continue to be a problem moving forward, I'm sure. I'm done.
Chairman,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
1 second. Mr. Yeomans, did you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I certainly understand what Mr. McCusker has said. I have visited the site, myself at various times. The question I have is that when we approved this comprehensive permit, I think it was subject to, and I don't have that permit in front of me, it was subject to all the terms and conditions that would be imposed on a builder building anywhere in town. When it was explained by the gentleman, when he first did the explanation for the request, the fact that the inside finish work could be done anytime, what comes to mind immediately is we have 100 units. We have 50 duplexes going in there, 100 living units. It's not just like, somebody's building one house. So I think, I agree with Bill. I think it is a major change. I haven't been involved for the whole period of time that this comprehensive permit has been in the approval stage, but I've been involved with it for 8 years. And I think it is disrespectful of the people that live in the immediate area. And they've turned out in droves at previous meetings. And I think that they should be given the chance to hear what the builder has proposed and to voice their opinions relative to the changes that are being requested. So I totally concur with what Mr. McCusker has said in his review of this project.
Chairman?
Mr. Cousin?
Thank you. We're not proposing, I understand there were some issues, and possibly Mr. Ahmed can speak to some of those, but we're not proposing any changes to the hours of operation for any of the site work infrastructure. The primary thing that we're asking for is to be able to build to contractors, the finished carpenters, the plumbers, the electricians, the sheetrockers, so forth, on the inside of the houses. We don't think it's appropriate to have, those type of hours limited to the interior work. No more than any other development in town. So
Mr. Chair.
So there again, the infrastructure, we're not proposing any changes to the hours.
I mean, I think the concerns you're hearing from the board are that they haven't shown any interest in complying with, you know, the hours that are established now. So why would we be inclined to expand those hours?
Not expanding the hours on the infrastructure. It's exactly the same.
But on the
We're not-
interior, and how does, you know, who defines the interior? You know, is it framing within the bounds of the foundation? You know?
So framing, I've indicated that would not be, the hours of framing would not change. I'm just talking about the inside of the work, the roof, the framing, the foundation, the, you know, the roofing work on the outside would not be changing. Those hours would not be changing.
But I think there's not a lot of confidence that, you know, the team there would observe those nuances.
Well,
Mr.
I don't know
Berger?
whether, Munir, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Excuse me, Mr. Berger, please.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Bill, you're Bob, muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been trying to find our general bylaws. We do have hours of construction, and I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% positive, it's between 7 and 5 or 7 and 8. I don't know the exact numbers, but we enacted that several years ago. The complaints that the building department usually gets when there's a subdivision going on is people going in and out of their cars, in and out of their trucks, slamming the doors. When you talk about interior construction, you know, interior construction doesn't mean that it's closed. I mean, you've got a screw gun in there. It's gonna make noise, you know, through the windows that aren't installed yet, the doorways that aren't enclosing that opening. The noise is not contained within that unit. The noise is going out. We get the phone calls all day long, not just on this project, on all the projects. Hey, they're starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. You got to do, and that's not the big trucks. That's the guys that are pulling the wires and laying the pipe. So I'd wanted that, the board to hear that from me. Those are the complaints that come in. And thank you for hearing me.
Well, actually, Bob, just one other question. Have you received any further complaints since early October?
Since the floods, no.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question to Mr. Berger. Do you grant any special dispensation to other builders in town to not, you know, to work on the inside at any hour of the day or?
No, I don't. And if they are going to work on a Sunday, they would have to get special permission from the police department. The only time that people can work off hours in case of an emergency, like if a tornado comes in or a bad storm and trees fall on roofs. We have that in the bylaw, but we have hours of operation just earmarked for construction.
Yeah, and again, I don't recall, and I haven't reviewed the comprehensive permit, but I don't think that we've granted any waivers relative to the bylaws that we have in the town of Grafton that would be applicable to building and construction and the noises associated with that. So in my opinion, that this is a major change, and I think, you know, we can have further discussion and then go to a vote and, you know, take it from there.
Mr. McCusker.
Yeah, Bill just stole a little bit of my thunder. In following up what Bob said is, it is somewhere in our bylaw. I was trying to find it as well. I know I've seen it. So yeah, that's another thing is if we actually did this, it would include a new waiver that hadn't been granted. So even more reason why this, you know, becomes a major change. You're going to start talking about granting waivers that we hadn't previously granted. The other thing I'm just going to add is, you know, I did new construction in a prior life, I was a HVAC mechanic. We did primarily residential, did a lot of condominiums and developments just like this. The idea that you can have work, the idea that you can even define interior work, versus exterior is really hard, as was already kind of pointed out. A window's missing or something like that. Suddenly, what's interior work becomes exterior. But if you have a tin knocker in there doing, putting together his ductwork and putting together his tin, that's very loud. Screw guns putting up sheetrock. The plumbers and the electricians. If they're inside the building doing their rough work before the building's been insulated and sheetrock, that's going to sound just as loud inside the building as outside, or nearly as loud outside the building as it is inside. The idea that that's going to be quiet is really kind of, it's not real. I've spent enough time on job sites to know that there really is no such thing, unless you're talking about painting or something like that. There really is no such thing as quiet work on a construction site. And I personally, Riot Act by generals contractors when we showed up early. I mean, the idea that you can't start work till 7 o'clock is not unique to Grafton. It's not, it's not something that's foreign. And I want to get an early start when I was working in the field, just like anyone else. And I have been read the Riot Act by GCs along the lines of, don't show up here until after 7 o'clock. And quite frankly, that's what Mr. Munier should be doing. In this project. I mean, somebody should be controlling what's going on down there and not letting people just run wild doing whatever they want, which is the perception I have of how this project's been managed. So, again, it definitely is a major change, and I just can't see ourselves. I can't see this board granting it.
Any further comment? Mr. Ahmed?
Yeah, after our couple of incidents in October, we've been, the main guy working right now is Trainer Construction, our main site guy. And we've been pretty hard on him, no vehicles and no work before 7 a.m. So I think we're in better shape than we were when we first started, because it was also the tree guy and we've been controlling him really tightly. So my only other thing is no vehicles. So no vehicles before 7 a.m. and no work before 7 a.m. So we're both 7 a.m. And I think we were trying to maybe move that 6:30 and no work before 7, or any comments on that?
I don't think anything different than you've already heard.
Okay.
Any feedback from the board other than it's already been said?
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Oh, Mr. Rogers.
Just to add a little bit on what Mr. Berger and Mr. McCusker said, I mean, there is no interior finished carpentry work that can be done without noise. I mean, you're talking about power saws, high-powered nail guns. Even when the windows are closed, that resonates to the neighbors within 100 feet, to say the least. It seems like this particular developer, like Mr. McCusker said, is not willing or not wanting to comply with a very standard 7 a.m. work order. I don't know. Have any sanctions been considered to actually force compliance? I don't know. Just throwing that out there as a board. Is there anything we can do? Like, if any further lack of compliance, any kind of sanctions to actually force compliance?
I think the enforcement falls to Mr. Berger.
Mr. Berger?
We have any?
Yeah, the next, Mr. Chair, the next step is we just file in court. I mean, that's where we are right now. If anything else happens, I was prepared to go to court on the last round. And if anything further violates the comprehensive permit, that is our next step. And our town attorney is well aware that's where we're heading.
Thanks.
Any further comment? Ms. Reed?
It's pretty black and white. 7 a.m. start. stop. Like that's, I don't know what the discussion is really. It's pretty obvious. This is a Grafton Town rule and it should be followed, period. Nobody should show up before 7. I don't know why. There's not much more to talk about, really. So I agree with, Bill McCusker and Yeomans and everybody. It shouldn't be difficult.
All right. So at this time, let's see, I entertain a motion regarding, let me see, hold on. Regarding the notice of project change submitted for Fisherville Terrace, that this proposed change is a insubstantial change, right? Isn't that what they're proposing here? Sorry.
I don't know if it matters which direction we voted. I was gonna do a motion that says it's a substantial change.
I think that's simpler. That's what I.
Yeah, I think that's, I can't think of any reason why. Sometimes it does matter if you do which direction you're doing it. I don't know that it matters. I don't know, Mr. Yeomans has something to say there.
Mr. Yeomans, you're muted.
You're muted, Bill. You're muted.
Okay, the motion before us is the motion that they brought forth to us. So I think that is the motion that Brian is citing. And if they're looking for it to be an insubstantial change, and if we don't agree with that, we would vote against that. And that vote would then create it to be a substantial change.
Okay.
Chairman,
So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McCusker?
I was going to offer a motion. Are we ready for that?
Mr. Cussin, did you have a comment?
no, I was just going to say, I see where the board is going. I think it's very clear just to make it to vote a substantial change. I think that's what McCluster. I think that's what Mr. McCluster is going to be doing.
All right, I'm going to go in that direction. And Mr. Chairman, I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals determine that the notice of project change for Fisherville Terrace dated December 15th, 2021 is a substantial change to the comprehensive permit.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we'll take a roll call vote.
I did the motion, guys. I'm not the chairman anymore.
Yeah.
I did the
So,
motion.
Bill's motion. Yes.
And then I seconded it.
Old habits are hard
Okay.
to break, I know.
It doesn't matter. Habits.
Well, we just want to do it right.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Rozier?
Could I just ask one question before you vote?
Yes.
So if this becomes a substantial change, that means it'll be open for new hearing?
If not automatically, right? Wouldn't it need to be submitted?
They would
a
have to
substantial
withdraw it. They would have to withdraw it.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to cost. I mean, they need to pay for the advertising and all that. So there will be some cost to it, but so they could withdraw it if they don't want to go forward with it.
I mean, I would think that's from what I'm hearing. I'm surprised they're not withdrawing now, but and I'm only an alternate, so I'm not a voting member, but it just seems I wouldn't want to draw the whole neighborhood into this if I were them, which a substantial change would do, correct? Yeah.
Yes, I would have to advertise and send legal notices to all the abutters.
It would be an interesting hearing.
Okay,
Thank you.
so vote on Mr. McCusker's motion. In summary, that this notice of project change is a substantial change. Mr. Roziers?
So yes, this is a substantial change.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Motion's passed. The notice of project change is deemed by the board to be a substantial change.
So I think we need to schedule a hearing within 30 days.
We have the option to withdraw this now. So can we, can I speak with Paul on the side and then we can.
Well, you don't have to do that during the meeting. You could discuss it offline and notify Katrina.
Okay.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, so we may screw up a little bit with when we schedule our next hearing being February 11th, because I think if they do want to move forward, I think they're gonna, it has to be done in 30 days. We can double check with Dan Hill on that. So we'll probably have to if they want to move forward, we'll probably have to schedule a hearing on like February 3rd, or even January 27th. So just kind of a heads up as you're doing the scheduling for this, Katrina. I think there's a 30-day window of some sort, and I may have it wrong.
There's the 20-day to hear their original request.
Right.
But here's the thing, if it is 30 days, we need to make a decision because I've got to get the legal notice to the Grafton News.
And yeah, we can look into it all tomorrow. I may be completely wrong on that 30-day.
Okay. I think what it is, because what we've done in the past is we have to schedule it within 20 days and then whenever we can schedule the hearing. I mean, we can't push it out indefinitely because I'm trying to think, but I can check with Dan. I'll send him an email tonight before I leave.
Yeah.
I mean, what if the petitioner is in agreement with a subsequent hearing on February 10th? If
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Tomorrow is not going to be a good day because of the storm, but I'd like a day or so just to talk to the client and we'll decide what we're going to do on Monday, whether we want to go forward or withdraw. Having said that, the board could have time to schedule it. We'll definitely decide about.
You broke up.
Decide by Monday. I need time to discuss it with my client, and we'll send a formal letter on Monday.
Okay. And then, so in the event you don't withdraw, are you in agreement with a subsequent hearing on February 10th, if necessary?
Yeah, I think
which may be outside of 30 days.
I don't know what I think the time period is actually you have to open within 30 days from tonight, from the time you determine that it's, and that would still give us, and we could always agree to extend that 30-day period if that became necessary for scheduling and so forth. So I think Monday will give us plenty of time to decide what we're going to do.
Okay, that works.
Okay, not that this really matters to anybody, but I am off all of next week. So if it doesn't get extended to the 11th, I will not be here to get legal notices to the Grafton News anytime prior to that. So I just wanted to put it out there.
What's the time period that you have to?
It's got to be at least 3 weeks prior to the hearing. So let's say you guys had the meeting scheduled for the 27th. I would have had to get the legal notice tomorrow. It's got to be 3 weeks because it's got to be the Friday before the 2 publications. So if it were going to be the 3rd, I would have to get the legal notice to the Grafton News 13th because it would have to be published on the 20th and the 27th. So I technically need 3 weeks before the actual hearing date to get the legal notice published.
If we decide to go forward, we'll work with you on the time schedule.
Okay, I just wanted to put it out there. I didn't want to leave anyone in the lurch.
All right, thanks, Katrina. So actually, Katrina's going to be unavailable to receive your notice.
I'll be here Monday. I'll be in Monday. I leave
okay.
Tuesday, so I'll be in
Okay.
Monday.
I could also send, Mr. Chairman, if you can have Katrina forward me your email, I can also forward it to you.
Sure, that's fine.
I'll forward it, Paul. And also, just to let everyone know, the building is closed, so not many people are coming into work. So anything that I might need to get stamped into the town clerk, I don't know if I have access unless someone's here to let me in. So that's another issue. The building's closed until the 18th.
Okay. I mean, I think there's some COVID latitude built in there somewhere. All right. So let's see. I think that is everything, right?
Right, I think we need to do 244 Worcester. And Gordon, I think they asked for continuous.
Yes, they did. They asked for a continuance to our next scheduled meeting.
Okay, so, and that has to be voted on?
Yeah, so
Allowed? Okay.
I move that we continue case number 76 to February 10th at 7 p.m.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. DeRosiers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Case 876 will be continued to February 10th at 7 p.m. All right. So the only thing left is minutes. Do you need a motion to close the public hearing?
No, because we really haven't. Worcester Street's still open. And even going back to Fisherville, that wasn't a public hearing. So I think we're all set on that sort of stuff.
All right.
We just continued. Worcester Street is still open.
All right. So what? So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move through the minutes because I'm starting to memorize them.
Mr. Chairman, I had sent shortly before this meeting some edits that the board should be aware of and approve as part of the approval. I can share my edits so others can see them, and perhaps others can just shout out any other changes they want. You'd like me to do that?
Yeah, please.
I did forward them to everybody.
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody can see them. So if the technology works, you should be looking at minutes right now.
Yep.
Yep.
Boy, it's amazing, huh? So these are from April 14th. And some edits, just kind of wording sort of edits on there. If anyone else has changes, they should shout them out, so to speak, so that Katrina can capture them. And down below, I don't think I had any on the second page. No, I didn't. So those are all my edits right here on the first page.
I'm in agreement with that. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of Wednesday, April 14th with the edits as noted.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes,
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
chairman votes yes.
All right,
April.
bear with me. I'll get June 10th up.
Zoning board, guys, have a great night. Thank you. I had a great time.
good night.
I'm sure
Robert.
you
Thank
did,
you, Bob.
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 Thank you, Bob.
My pleasure.
So these are June 10th minutes, and I don't think there was many edits. I think looks like only one, I guess. Just adding in Ms. Ranchek's name, I guess, is the only thing I did there. Yeah, that's it. I don't want to make people seasick, so I'll stop moving it. So that's the only change I had.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the minutes of Thursday, June 10th, 2021 with edits as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes,
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
chairman votes yes.
All right. Next up would be September 30th.
the only
And-
thing I noticed on that, on the variance, I did see a note that, oh no, it's Mr. Berber. It was corrected, Mr. Berger.
So one question I have, so this is regarding 244 Worcester Street. This was the first night that hearing was open. And I don't recall, this line here, withdrawing the variance request for the height variance. I don't recall any discussion at that point of withdrawing it. I think there might have been, and I'm not sure, I'm looking for some feedback, I guess. We might have discussed the fact that the planning board can grant a waiver for height, or am I imagining even that? But I think the planning board can, but I don't know. But I don't remember any discussion of withdrawing the height variance that night. Does anyone else remember? So
I don't.
I'm gonna assume nobody else necessarily remembers. Katrina, I think we should strike this completely. And then I guess there's just one other.
That should just say Mr. Holmes, I think, right? Where your mouse
Yeah.
was.
I got that. I'll change that one.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. And let's see, did I have anything else in here? No. No. By the way, Katrina, I assume you edit yours and not just take mine with this confidential stuff here. That's my
Correct.
company. Was that crap
Yep.
there?
Yeah, I do it in the one I have as a draft in the system.
So I think that's all the changes I had. I hope I'm not getting people seasick by moving here, but I think that's it. Those two.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of Thursday, September 31st, September 30, 2021, with edits as written.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes,
Mr. McCusker,
Yes.
the chairman votes yes.
So then next up here is Thursday, November 4th. What I did here, Katrina, and I think we really kind of need to do this is Brian recused himself before case 878, right? Because he's not participating in 878. So that's why I moved this up here and then added in a line down here that basically says when he rejoined the meeting. So that the minutes are clear that he left. Then we did case 878 and then he returned.
Okay.
And I must have something wrong with my R and T keys or something, because I got the same typo there.
I
Got
think
it.
it's skiing, Bill, whenever you're doing the R and M mountains.
Yeah, who knows? So there's those changes, and I thought that I had a comment. Oh yeah,
I have one comment on that 11.4. In the Worcester Street variance on parking, I would just say no testimony was heard from the applicant on this case. We didn't discuss it, but we did discuss that they're not here.
I agree. And we should have that on all of them when it's a continuance and we don't do anything, even like tonight's as well, right? We continued it, no discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
no testimony was heard from the applicant who was not in attendance.
Oh, wait a minute. It's right here. It's so this actually should be up here.
Okay.
But I have a question here. Discussion tables, the next meeting, need information. Sorry, so this is regarding Providence Road Commons. I don't think this is accurate here. I think on November 4th. Oh, this is Providence Road. Maybe this is correct. Oh, no. This is Elm Rock. This is Elm Rock.
Oh, yeah.
So on November 4th, we agreed, no, we gave them the bad news that we need to keep the 20% until after the road is accepted. Right. So we didn't table the discussion. So this really should say, all right, owners requesting we do 17,000, 20%. No, I think this all goes out.
Okay.
And then maybe it's just here, board informed applicant that the 323,000 must be held until road acceptance.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
I move that we accept the minutes for Thursday, November 4, 2021, with edits as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans,
Yes.
Mr. McCusker.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.
So yay, we're all caught up again.
Yay. Yay.
It's not so daunting thinking about it when there's only one, I guess, if we keep up with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Also just wanted to say, I'm sorry I was late coming into tonight's meeting. Also had computer issues, just a whole bunch of stuff getting me late. Apologies.
It
No
happens.
problem. Happens.
Yeah,
It
no
happens. It
worries.
usually happens with me. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of news I heard today. Steve O'Connell is out indefinitely from Turning Point. He had a brain tumor removed today.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Wow.
I talked to Travis. Travis is trying to get up to speed on everything Steve was working on for Fisherville. So he's working on getting me some stuff, and Travis will keep me updated. It was cancerous and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do now. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that.
Oh, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's tough.
It's awful.
Yeah. So
Send
if I hear anything, I'll let you guys know,
positive
but
vibes, yeah.
Travis called me at like 4:30 today to ask a couple questions and he filled me in, so.
Okay. Hopefully he'll be okay.
Yep.
He's a good guy.
Yes.
All right.
Are we good?
Do we? Yeah. We don't need to do anything else, right? No formalities, I mean, to,
Looking at the agenda, I think we got everything, didn't we?
Yes. So just to give you guys an update on both Fisherville and Prentice on other topics. So the bonds never got issued for the site disturbance and infrastructure. It was a mix-up between both Bob and I. We're getting it rectified. I have spoken to Jeff Walsh. He is reviewing both sets of plans to get the cost estimate for the site disturbance bonds, and then he will work on the infrastructure bonds. I have informed both Fisherville and Prentice that until I receive those two bonds or tri-party agreements, we can't issue any building permits or anything else because they should have been issued before they even broke ground. So that's the status on those two. And I have not received anything from Elm Rock in regards to them submitting for their closeout. So that's the update on those.
Thank you.
Anything new with Adams
All right.
Road?
They've been quiet. I haven't heard anything. I know Neil did submit the 3 building permits. Bob hasn't issued them because we still have the issue with Nancy Piccone, and I don't know what's going on with that. Bill might know something because we did receive something that they have made attempts to rectify the situation, but she keeps refusing everything they've offered.
Yeah, so we actually have another request from their attorney to, I guess, to find that the roads are complete and the infrastructure is complete and that sort of thing, so they can release that part of the bond. And we're probably overdue to actually have acted on that. I want to be careful how much more I say because some I think might actually be privileged. So can we add discussion of Adams Road to our next meeting, and I'll be a little bit better prepared to talk about it. And I'll even let you know if we're going to need to do something in executive session, but I don't think, not sure where we stand with all of that. So I just want to let's talk about it at our next meeting when I'm better prepared to discuss it. And I don't know if this was really shared with the board, but Brian and I talked about this, and because of my history with Adams Road and a lot of the intricacies, et cetera, Brian has asked, and we've agreed that I'll kind of continue to take the lead on that particular 40B. So working, offline with Dan and others on that, I'll continue to do that.
Makes sense.
all right.
So I think we can make a motion. I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Sounds good.
Yes to that.
roll call.
Got to do roll call.
Mr. Roger.
Yes, yes.
Ms. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Yeomans.
Yes.
Mr. McCusker.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes.